Hello and welcome along to a little video that'll help you with your case study of the typhoon that hit the Philippines called Typhoon Haiyan. So we're going to start off with a little bit of an overall context here. Here are the Philippines, and this is the route of the typhoon as it came overhead, and this is showing you the actual typhoon itself. I'll turn off the sea color temperatures, and there you can see the typhoon coming in over the islands of the Philippines. Now we'll zoom in a little bit closer. Let me turn off that satellite image, and we can come in here and see something of the storm damage that was caused as a result of this typhoon. The typhoon approached here from the east, so no surprise that the islands that were most affected are those both closest to the track and over here towards the east. But in particular, we want to zoom in here and take a look at this area here of Tacloban City. Tragically, Tacloban City was one of the worst affected areas whenever it comes to this typhoon. And part of the reason is because of its location. As you know, one of the things that hurricanes and typhoons can bring is the storm surge. And as you can see here, the bay here, San Pablo Bay, acted as a natural funnel. As the storm surge came up here, it was funneled in, and if you squeeze it from the side, it's going to increase the height of the storm surge as it came in, and particularly when it comes here to Tacloban City itself, which, as you can see, is a city that's right beside the sea. It's on relatively low ground as well. If you look over here, you come over here to the high ground. This hill here is 390 meters high, so that's about just slightly less than half the size of Slieve Donner, to give you a bit of a sense of the scale. So there's a little bit of higher ground here, but the lower ground here was flat and was absolutely inundated by the storm surge that came in. You can see that the buildings here, the red are those that were destroyed, and the yellow orangey ones are those that were damaged, and you can see that it just came in and devastated the whole area, and so many of the buildings damaged and destroyed, and tragically thousands of people were killed in this area. So just to give you a bit of a sense of the storm surge coming in, here's a little bit of a video of what it looks like. The water coming in, and it caught people by surprise. You can see here that these poor people are running for their lives in winds that are incredibly strong. We'll see that these are some of the strongest winds ever recorded, and that's kind of looking and feeling a little bit more like a tsunami, isn't it? It's not a tsunami, it is a storm surge, but it does show you the devastating impacts here coming over the top of the harbour wall there, and just all of that dreadful flooding. Here comes again. That is a storm surge. Looks an awful lot more like a tsunami, but that is a storm surge. And there's the winds, just to remind you that it's not just the storm surge, but the storm surge was really, really significant when it comes to this. So let's come in and take a look at the case study. The case study itself is very straightforward. We've got to look at the impacts of this typhoon, and the impacts, first of all, on people. Tragically, 6,300 people died in this typhoon, and in particular, as I've just shown you, in Tacloban City, the highest death toll. Around 1/3 of all the deaths from the typhoon occurred there, and this was largely because of a lack of evacuation beforehand. There's about just shy of 250,000 people lived in Tacloban, but only 20,000 of them evacuated. And then, as you saw from that video, there were so many people just left in Tacloban City. As the storm surge came up Pablo Bay, it was funneled up towards Tacloban City. We've already seen that, and gaining height as it went. It came onshore fast, in some places up to 6 meters high, sweeping 2 kilometers inland in the low flat area of the city. The people who hadn't evacuated, they didn't stand a chance. Thousands were drowned within minutes, including 100 of the people of the thousands who had gone to shelter in the Tacloban Conference Centre. Now, this is typically a smart thing to do because that's a strong brick-built building. It survives the impact of the winds. Tragically, as you can see here, it's right beside the sea with no seawall to protect it. And what happened was that the people that were inside, the thousands of people sheltering inside, were there whenever the waves just came on shore suddenly and flooded in through that conference centre. You can only imagine the terror and the fear as people were fleeing for that as the water burst in. And that is the story of the impacts on people. The second thing is the impacts on the property. We talk about the winds initially here. The winds at 315 kilometres per hour were the fastest wind speeds that were ever recorded at that time on land, and they damaged many of the upper buildings, especially the upper floors. You can see here, even in this one, the damage that the wind has done. It typically brings off roof tiles. Even a building as strong as this was damaged. The buildings that weren't built so well, you can imagine that they were just decimated. But it wasn't actually the winds caused the significant damage, it was the storm surge, especially here. And again, Tacloban City particularly badly destroyed and hit. 12,300 structures destroyed, 46,500 partially damaged, as you saw on that map with those yellow, those red and yellow and orange symbols in the GIS map I've just shown you. And the airport was severely damaged. Across the whole of the Philippines, 1.14 million structures were damaged. And as you zoom in here, you can absolutely see that utter devastation of all the stuff that's been swept around. The damage here in a building like this, the roof tiles partially torn off, but you can absolutely see how the storm surge has swept through and all the damage there. Imagine being caught up in all of that in the middle of all of the wind. It's no wonder that you're looking at such a terrible tragedy in terms of the loss of life and the impacts on people. And that is the story of Typhoon Haiyan.